All right, today we're going to be looking at graphing linear equations. So we're still in our function unit, but by the end of class, using that slope knowledge that we got in our last lesson, we should be able to use that to graph a linear equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so slope-intercept form here is going to be that y equals mx plus b, where the x and the y go with an ordered pair, and the m stands for the slope, and the b stands for the y-intercept on the graph. Okay, so notice that it's always solved for y, and then you can find that slope and y-intercept once it is solved for y. Okay, so on your notes here, make sure you're following along. If you don't have those, get a piece of paper to take those notes, but you can also download the note sheet on Canvas and fill that out so that you can earn the points for it. But remember, the slope is the rise over the run, and it is the steepness of the and direction of the line. So when we graph our lines today, we'll be using that slope, and then we'll also be using the y-intercept, which is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so for this graph here, that y-intercept is it's at -1. It goes down 1 from the origin. And then the slope, if I calculate that like we did last time, remember I have a -2/4, which -2/4 simplifies to -1/2. So you can see they wrote the equation here, y equals -1/2 x minus 1, where that slope is next to the x, so -1/2, and the y-intercept is that separate number. Okay, so before we graph here, we want to make sure to know, if we're looking at an equation, what the slope number is and what the y-intercept is. Okay, so take a look here at a few of these equations. On number 1, it is in the y equals mx plus b. Remember that slope is next to the x, so the slope is 3 and the y-intercept is -6. On number 2, it's still in that y equals mx plus b form, so the slope is -5 and the y-intercept is 1. Okay, on number 3, you have to be careful. They switched the order around a little bit, but it's still in the y equals mx plus b. The slope is -11. Remember, it's that number next to the x, and then the y-intercept is 14. Okay, moving on to number 4, again, still in y equals mx plus b. So the slope is -2/3. That's right next to the x, and then the y-intercept is +8. Okay, number 5, still y equals mx plus b. Remember, when there's no number, that is a 1. So the slope for number 5 is -1, and the y-intercept is -2. Okay, number 6, y equals x minus 11, which is still in the y equals mx plus b form. The slope is 1, and the y-intercept is -11. Okay, on number 7, still in y equals mx plus b, the slope there is -5, and notice there's no plus or minus a number, which means the y-intercept is 0. Okay, number 8 looks a little bit different here. Y equals x over 4 plus 7. You can pull that fraction out to the front. On top, remember, is a 1. So we could just pull that out and make it 1/4. So the slope is 1/4 and the y-intercept is 7. Number 9 there, still in y equals mx plus b, but notice there's no x term, which means that the number in front of that x would have been 0. So the slope is 0 and the y-intercept is 10. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of these graphs here, or these equations, and actually graph them. So remember, the two things that I want are the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so on question number 1 here, that slope is 7/5 and my y-intercept is -2. So I'm going to go to my y-axis here. Remember, that's the up and down, and I'm going to plot a point at -2. So right here is my y-intercept, and then that slope is 7/5. So remember, that's the rise over the run. So I'm going to rise 7 and I'm going to run 5, and those are both positive. So if I rise 7, I'm going to count 7 up, and then I'm going to count 5 in the positive direction, which is to the right. And I put my dot. Okay, so there's my dot, if it'll let me draw it, and then I can draw my line through those 2 points and put arrows in both directions. So there is the line of that equation. Okay, looking at number 2 here, it is in the y equals mx plus b. My slope is -1/2, and remember there's no number there, so that means my y-intercept is 0. So on my graph, I'm going to go to the y-axis here, and I'm going to put a dot at 0. Okay, then I'm going to count my rise and my run. So my rise is -1, which means I have to go down, and my run is 2, positive 2. So I'm going to go in the right direction. So down 1 and right 2 would put me right there. I can keep doing that if I want to make sure my line is straight, but there is the line of that equation. So my rise was -1, I went down, and my run was positive 2, I went to the right, and going in that positive direction. So there's the line of that equation. Okay, number 3, y equals 3. Still in y equals mx plus b. There's just no x there, which means my slope is 0 and my y-intercept is 3. So again, going to the y-axis here, I'm going to go to 3, put that dot, okay? And then a slope of 0, if you remember, is that special flat case. So that is just a line going through y equals 3 there. So there is the line of y equals 3. Okay, going to number 4. Okay, I want to pick out my slope and my y-intercept. My slope is -1/1. So remember, this is a -1, and then I want to make it a fraction. My y-intercept is 2. Okay, so going to the y-axis here, I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 2. Okay, and then my rise is -1, so I'm going to go down 1, and my run is +1, so I'm going to go down or to the right 1. So there, if I mark those, okay, there is the slope. So -1, and then my y-intercept was 2. So there is the line of that equation. Okay, moving to number 5. Notice it's not in the y equals mx plus b form. So this one's a special case, and because it says x equals 2, it goes through the x-axis, okay? This is that undefined slope. So my slope is undefined. There is not a y-intercept. There's an x-intercept because it says x equals 2. So I go to the x-axis at 2, put a dot, and then draw that line straight up and down. So there is the line of that equation, okay? Number 6, my slope is -3/1, turning that into a fraction, and then my y-intercept is -2. So again, going to the y-axis, I'm at -2, and then my rise is -3, so I'm going to go down 3, and then my run is +1, so I'm going to go over 1. Okay, I can't do that again going down, so I could go back to my -2 and go up 3, and then go left 1, do the opposite of that, but there is the line of that equation. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and try 7, 8, and 9. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can graph those, and then I'll go over the answers, and then we can continue on. Okay, for number 7 here, the slope is 9/2, and the y-intercept is 4. So I would put my y-intercept here at 4. Now I can't rise 9, I can't go up 9, so I have to go down 9. So I'm going to make that -9. If I make that -9, I have to make it, if I make it -9, I have to make it -2, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So from the 4, I'm going to go down 9, and then I'm going to go left 2, which would be right here. So there is the slope of, or there's the equation, there's the line of that equation. Okay, it is going in the positive direction. Okay, number 8, my slope is -4/1, and my y-intercept is -5. So put a dot at -5 on that y-axis, and then I can't go down 4, so I have to go up 4, and then I'm going to go left 1. So going up 4 and left 1. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. Going up 4 more and going left 1. Okay, so then right here is the line of that equation. I didn't draw it very straight, but there's the line of that equation. Okay, and number 9, remember x equals -1. The slope is undefined and there is no y-intercept. So on the x-axis at -1, it's just that line straight up and down. So the intercept is an x-intercept. Okay. All right, now all of those equations were in y equals mx plus b. They will not always be in y equals mx plus b, so you will have to get it to be solved for y. So just a quick review here of our equation rules, but I'm going to subtract x here from both sides, and then I get y equals -x plus 4. That's in that y equals mx plus b form. Okay, on letter B here, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I get -y equals -x plus 7. Still not solve for y. I have to divide by -1 everywhere. So I get y equals +x minus 7. That is in that y equals mx plus b form. Okay, on letter C, I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So I get 8y equals -4x minus 24. Now I'm dividing by 8 everywhere. So I get y equals -4 over 8 is -1/2 x, and then minus 3. So there's that y equals mx plus b form. Okay, so see if you can pause the video and try D and E by yourself and see if you can solve for y. But I will go over those answers here. Okay, so on letter D, you should have added 2x to both sides this time. So I have -3y equals 2x minus 24, and then I'm dividing by -3 everywhere. So y equals -2/3 x plus 8. Okay, letter E, I'm going to subtract 5x from over here, subtract it over here. So -5x plus 600 equals 10y, and now I divide by 10 everywhere. So -1/2 x plus 60 equals y. Okay, and that is in that y equals mx plus b form. So the general rules for converting to slope-intercept form are always take care of that x term, either add or subtract it to the other side, and then divide by that coefficient of y. Coefficient is just the number in front of. Okay, so the number in front of y, you divide by that. Those are the same steps every time. Move the x term, divide by that number in front of y. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what that would be like. Okay, so here, if I rearrange this, I'm going to add 3x to both sides, and I get y equals 3x plus 2. Okay, so my slope is 3 over 1, and my y-intercept is 2. So if I go to graph that now, I'm going to go to the y-axis at 2. Okay, and then I'm going to go up 3 and over 1. Okay, I could also go back the other way and go down 3 and left 1. Do the opposite, but there is the line of that equation. Okay, number 2. Subtract x from both sides. I get 2y equals -x plus 8. Divide by 2 on both sides. So I get y equals -1/2 x plus 4. So my slope is -1/2, and my y-intercept is 4. So if I go to my graph here, I'm going to put that dot on the y-axis at 4. And then I'm going to go down 1 because my rise is -1, and then right 2. My run was +2, and I can keep doing that to get a better line. So there is the line of that equation. Okay, number 3 then. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. So I get negative y equals negative 3x plus 6. Now I have to divide by negative 1 everywhere. So I get y equals 3x minus 6. Okay, so my slope is 3 over 1 if I turn it into a fraction, and my y-intercept is negative 6. Okay, so going to graph that, I'm going to graph my y-intercept at negative 6. And then I'm going to rise positive 3, so up 3. And I'm going to run positive 1, which is to the right 1. Okay, so then up 3 more and over 1. I'm going to do that just to get a little bit of a better line there. Okay, and again, an arrow in both directions. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and try rearranging 4 and 5 and then graphing that. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and then unpause it to get the answers here. But on number 4, if you rearrange that, you should get y equals 5 over 6x plus 5. Okay, so my slope is 5 over 6 and my y-intercept is 5. So I'm going to put my y-intercept here at 5. Okay, and it says my rise is positive 5, but if you look at my graph, I can't go up 5. So I actually have to go negative 5, and if I change this to negative 5, I have to change this to negative 6. So down 5 and left 6 would put me over here, so the line of that equation should look like that. Some of you might have gone in the other direction to the right. Make sure it is a positive slope, so you have to go up to the right with your line. On number 5, if you rearrange that, you get y equals negative 1/3 x. Negative 1/3 x. So my slope is negative 1/3, and my y-intercept, remember when there's no number, is 0. So there's my y-intercept at 0. I'm going to go down 1 for the rise, negative 1, and then right 3 for the run. I'm going to do that one more time so that I have at least 3 dots to make that line. So there is the line of that equation. Okay. All right, the last 2 things I want to go over with you are those special case lines, just so that you have those answers and those examples. So remember, when I have y equals, that is in slope-intercept form. So this one would be like having y equals 0x minus 5, where slope is 0 and my y-intercept is negative 5. So I'd put my y-intercept here at negative 5, and I wouldn't be rising or running it anything because the slope is 0. So it's just that straight line left to right. Okay, on number 2, x equals 3, not even in that y equals mx plus b form. So you can't put it in that form, which means it's a special case, and it's the opposite of the other one. The other one goes left to right. This is x equals, so I'm going to the x-axis at 3, putting my dot there, and it goes straight up and down. So there's the line for x equals 3. Okay, so make sure to take pictures of your notes and submit them through this assignment in Canvas to earn your points for this assignment. There's also a practice sheet attached to the assignment that you can work through to help you remember how to graph lines in y equals mx plus b. Okay, so some of them are not in slope-intercept form on that practice, so make sure you look back at your notes for how we rearranged that to get that in slope-intercept form.